Welcome everyone. My name is Allison Heaney, Vice President of Learning and Public Programming at the Museum of Latin American Art. We welcome you today, Wednesday, July 27th, 2022, to this edition of MOLAA Zoom Project in conversation with the artist Pablo Rasgado, where MOLAA Chief Curator Gabriel Urtiaga will discuss the artist, his work, and career. MOLAA also acknowledges the support of the Dwight Stewart Youth Fund, the Kenneth T. Eileen Norris Foundation, the Miller Foundation, and the Arts Council of Long Beach for their constant support of the educational programs at the Museum of Latin American Art. Each chapter of the MOLAA Zoom project features a conversation between the most remarkable artists from Latin America and Latinx across the US and our MOLAA Chief Curator. Together, we focus on a series of specific artworks which require a close inspection, a deliberate process of contemplation and exploration, delving into the ideas surrounding the creations of the work, their sources of research and inspiration, in an effort to immerse ourselves in the world of the artists. In chapter 23 of the MOLAA Zoom project, we are joined by multidisciplinary artist Pablo Rasgado, whose work reflects on the passage of time in connection with the landscape, urban and natural, and where he experiments and investigates the imminent changes that objects possess based on form, function, and historical symbology. Among his recent solo shows include Time-Based at MOLAA here in Los Angeles 2022, the Blue Project Foundation Barcelona, España in 2019, Double Vision at MOCA Tucson in Tucson, Arizona, and This Too Shall Pass Steve Turner Gallery Los Angeles in 2017. Notable group exhibitions include O Triángulo Atlántico in Brazil, Impermanence in the Biennial de Cuenca, United States of Latin America, MOCA Detroit, La Validad de la Piedra at the Museo Amparo in Mexico, Limited Visibility in Raleigh, North Carolina, Other People's Problems, Conflicts and Paradoxes at the Museum of Contemporary Art, Israel, Lost Line Contemporary Art from the Collection, LACMA, Los Angeles, La Irrespuestosos, Museo de Carrillo in Mexico. Rasgado is a member of the Sistema Nacional de Creadores de Arte of Mexico and has been a fellow with the Fundación Paulette Krasner in 2016, Programa Bancomer MACG, and with the Fondo Nacional para la Cultura y las Artes in 2006, 2010, and 2011, and has participated in numerous residencies, including Philadelphia, Paris, New York, Tijuana, and many more. He is also part of the public collections, including in LACMA, PAM, North Carolina Museum of Art, and he lives and works in Mexico City. As we begin this presentation, we encourage you to share your questions and feedback using the chat feature and also the Q&A. We'll have a Q&A portion at the end. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to our Chief Curator, Gabriela Urtiaga and Pablo Rasgado.
Thank you, Alison and all the MOLAA team. Hola, bienvenidos, welcome to MOLAA. I hope you are well and safe, and thank you for joining us today. Hola, Pablo querido, ¿cómo estás?
Hola,
thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you, MOLAA, and everyone in the Zoom project for joining the conversation today.
Thank you, Pablo. And Pablo, during your artistic residency at MOLAA at the beginning of the year, we have the opportunity to see you working and preparing your first show in a California museum here at MOLAA. Good for all of us, and we are so happy for that. And I would like to invite you with our audience to overview the gallery and then start our conversation about your artistic practice and also about your influences that transform your approach to the art.
Yes, sounds good. Mhm.
Thank you. It's amazing. I love to see your show here at MOLAA.
Thank
Tell
you.
us a little more about you, Pablo.
Yeah, thank you for the tour. It's great to see the galleries again.
Yeah.
Yeah, brings a bunch of memories from when we were installing it.
Mhm.
Yeah, the exhibition time-based. I like to see it as a little bit of I don't know, a revision of some of the works that relate to an idea of time. No, a small selection of those pieces that one way or the other has a connection to an idea of sequence or time within the works. And in that sense, it's interesting to see how they also have been evolving over time, because some of the pieces that we decided to include when we were working, you, Gabi, and I, Jorge, on the selection of the works, we chose some pieces that date from 2007. I think it's the oldest one, no?
Yeah.
And chose a few of these pieces that also are new approaches to these ideas. So it's an interesting conversation for me to see these old pieces and these new ones.
And Pablo, through your body of work, we can explore different dimensions around the creation. And you as an artist from Mexico, and also I think as a researcher, present us a layer of knowledge and at the same time, a lot of references about art, right? Tell us, how do you find your own voice in the contemporary scene? And if you like, we can put the focus in Grisalla from 2010, that is the piece that opened the show here at MOLAA.
Yeah, it's a good example to start, I think, because it's one of the oldest pieces that we have in the exhibition. It's also the introductory one, the first thing that visitors see in the when they enter the galleries. Mm-hmm. And it's also one of the pieces that have informed my practice a lot, no? In the sense that this is a piece that that starts with some of the questions that you will find in following pieces. This painting was composed by using a very complex and ancient restoration technique, a version of this restoration technique that a restorer and I we developed in order to be able to extract the painted layer from different architectural constructions. The original technique, the original version of the technique was thought to be able to extract what's the name, fresco paintings. Mm-hmm. But with this work that we did, we managed to make a few adjustments to the composition of the materials needed in order to be able to extract more recent type of materials like vinyl acrylic paint, enamels, and with that being able to extract these newer murals. This idea of extraction came from a particular question that was finding a vehicle, a way to approach the idea of painting and muralism from a contemporary standpoint that would include in its composition also notions of location, of history, of all these elements that surround an image, no? And also a painting that would avoid representation and would focus more in the idea of presenting an object. And with this focus and technique in mind, I was able to go to specific locations, extract sections, and then approach the image. In this particular case with Grisaya, what I did was to go to a particular place in the outskirts of Mexico called San Bernabé. It's the periphery of the city. I'm very interested in those areas. I've been working a lot in that part of the city, and I noticed this mural, this image that was being formed by external forces, let's say. No, it wasn't a person that would go and make an image on the surface, but the passing of buses around, the people that would go and stand next to the wall and soiling the surface of the wall. They were making together an unexpected mural, no, on that surface that contained certain dynamics that surrounded the space. Mm-hmm. After making the extraction, I noticed that there were some areas that were soiled in different gradients, let's say, no, and I managed to locate various of those and did these incisions into the image, all on the same size, and made a little bit of a grisalla from those sections. The grisalla is yeah, refers to drawing and different gradations of material in an image. And yeah, so that's the idea behind the grisalla. How we decided to place it in the museum, it shows, it's like an introduction. It takes you into the gallery space, yeah. Connecting to another project, another series of pieces called Timescapes, more recent in a way, because these pieces are very particular, but this is a recent Timescape. Another approach to this same technique, where I will go to certain places, find an image, extract it, and then make this new composition out of the different fragments that have been collected.
Yes, and Pablo, I really love that in each artwork you emphasize, right, the relationship between some materials with social concepts, and at the same time explore the metaphoric meaning that are representing in your large scale painting, installation, and with the refrain of the object that you allow us to rethink and look at their footprint, I think. Could you tell us about this particular concept that you are working in Timescapes section? It's number 2, this, but we have the number 3 from 2015, 2021.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these pieces, Timescapes, are a good example of what you were describing. These pieces have been constructed by an arduous work of extracting these pieces. As you see, the dates that it includes, it relates to the time that it takes to make one of these pieces. It's a period of about 6 to 7 years, and it's because the way these pieces are constructed is, I would go to a place that I live in and that has some sort of meaning to me, no? Mm-hmm. Do the extraction, then keep it, and then little by little I start to compose the image. But gathering the material, it's an integral part of the work. Also, the the size of the pieces, it's a constant within the series. All of the Timescape pieces are the measure is 5 by 2 meters, and this is also considered in the way of having the size of the piece in relation to the viewer. It's important. It has to be an architectonical area of that size, no, in a way that you get involved. Se hace envuelto, how do you use, like you delve into the image, let's say. So yeah, the idea of landscape is important in these images, in a sense of knowing, that each of these fragments relates to a particular place, and that the image continues outside of the frame. Yeah. It comes, you're only seeing a fraction, and a fraction that relates to yeah.
Yeah, I love that concept. And Pablo, the next series that I would like to invite you to explore is Dawn to Dusk from 2022 as one of your recent pieces that I really love. And what is the idea behind this and the different possibilities of reading? Because we are in contact here with the landscape, with different moments of the day, but also with the deconstruction of an idea, right?
Yeah, it's a good pairing, I think, for us to discuss after Timescape. So yeah, this as Timescape, they both relate with an idea of landscape and an idea of a sequence that keeps evolving. No, in this particular case, yes, we have a landscape. In this case, a snowy landscape from a place that I was living in, as well as with the Timescapes, where I was able to take the same image in different moments of the day. In this case, we see yeah, the day and night of the same location, and then you see a sequence of how the image from beginning to end starts to abstract itself, becoming a bit of an ornament or an architectural motif that diagrams a sense of three-dimensionality within the image, no? And yeah, this is a new series that I'm working on, where yeah, notions of landscape are very present, both as a genre and as a yeah, and as an image per se. I don't know.
Yeah. And well, the next one that we can explore a little more is about exposure time from 2022. And I know that the selection of the title, the selection of the materials, and the process of handling the materials and the images that you create are so important in your production. And tell us about the intersection between your creation and the random results of your final painting, because I think as an alchemist, you are working with amazing techniques, and we really love to know your secret.
Yeah, it's magic. In this particular piece, it's again an extraction of a place, no? In this case, it's my studio in Mexico City. The same wall, extracted 3 times, but with different time lapses, or like a different chunk of time in each case. No, the first one, I painted the wall, let it around what I was doing for about a week, then did the extraction, repainted the wall, left it for a month. Also, things were happening around the studio, extracted it, and the third one was a 6-month period. You can see in all the images how I don't know, there's certain elements that appear in a more how can, in a more dense way, or a more notorious way of these bumps and the dust, let's say, makes the image to be clearer. And it has a sort of relationship to photography and the idea of an exposure. I as you say, there's this element of uncertainty or of not knowing the final result, and just trusting in the process, and letting the accidents take over the piece that I have been promoting in the work, or like making part of the work, let's say. There's other pieces that we didn't include in this show where for example, I was working with molten lead, and part of the work was to notice how the material reacted to different factors, to different experiences and thermic shocks when passing from a liquid state to a solid state. Yeah.
And I really love the idea to think also these particular pieces as a photographic result, right? Because it's so important also the quantity of light and the quantity of time.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Yes, Pablo.
Yeah.
And you know, for example, I really love to see the audience in the gallery trying to capture all the details in this particular piece, but also in your installation, Levitation. And I think the body language of the people is an essential part of your pieces. Tell us about the next installation that we would like to review with you, and your relationship with the community and the potential conversation about the idea of time in your pieces.
Yeah, this next piece, assisted levitation, also relates to photography, as we were talking, no, in the sense of also thinking about this very important concept within photography, about the critical moment, this moment that Cartier-Bresson talked a lot about, in which you capture the object or the subject in that particular instant when things are about to happen. You don't see the end result, but you can imagine it, no? And you don't see the beginning of the event, but you get a sense through that critical moment. In this case, we have a certain and a range of objects, all of them captured in a jar, that seem to be levitating, that seem to be in a perpetual fall, which escapes the physics that we are, no, the gravity and those, yeah. That's what we expected to happen. These pieces have it's always interesting for me to see how people react to them, and as with other of the pieces that we included in the show, because there's this moment of discovery that happens within the gallery space. For me, I don't know, I think about these notions as an integral part of the work. That's why also why I mentioned the scale in Timescape. No, that's also part of it, of being yeah, surrounded by the pieces. These pieces are done also inside. No, most of them we did them at MOLAA Garden using found materials there. No, and
Yeah.
collecting the key element that allows this piece to happen, no, which is the sculpture is constructed by using spider webs as the motor for the object to keep on floating.
Yeah. And Pablo, also you create poetic painting, putting the focus in the contemporary archaeological artifact, talking about culture, a different notion of time in connection with landscape, could be urban or natural, where you investigate the immanent changes that objects possess, right? And in that sense, could you explain to us about your methodology in this interesting project, such Sunset Explore View and Landscape Explore View from 2022 that are new pieces for the show?
Yeah, the the construction of the pieces, the process to construct one of the pieces is very, very important within my work, such as the case of me in getting involved in learning a restoration technique for many years in order to be able to extract those first pieces that we talked about, or working with a physicist with some optical filters in order to create some holograms, or in this case, working inside of an industrial facility that would allow me to play with the materials in order to create these images. These paintings are interesting in how they are made, and it tells a lot about the process, no, and the final image. What I did was to get the canvas that was going to be painted, as it came all wrinkled and messy, and no, and brought it to a place that had an industrial press that would allow me to flatten the fabric in order to end up with a very thin layer of fabric that had all the wrinkles embedded in it. Then I primed the paint, the fabric, the canvas, and painted an image. No, again with notions of landscape and a site, a particular site in mind. And then once the image was created, the canvas was stretched into another support, which the stretching of the canvas started to abstract the image on its own, to break the image apart, making all these complex areas, random and complex areas, on its own by the process itself.
Yeah. And also, yes, and also with this and the other artwork, the audience need time to complete the image again, right?
Yeah. This one was done in Uruguay, in a very particular place, in a small town called Garzón, where you can see these very particular skies on top, that are very much of that site. And it's interesting to me also because when you see it from afar, this is something that you need to be on the exhibition space to notice it, but when you see it from afar, it gives you the notion of a landscape, even though it's complex and abstracted and deconstructed in a way, you know, but
Yeah.
still has this sense of a site.
Yeah, it's true. And you know, another fabulous painting is for architecture that I really love to see in dialogue with another current show that we present at the same moment of your exhibition, Abstract Art Beyond the Frame from 1940 to 1990. And also to see this particular piece with the video of the other amazing artist, Ana Sacerdote. And I would like if you can tell us about the story of this particular artwork, and what about your daily exercise to research and to create this large-scale artwork.
Yeah, I really like the dialogue between the two shows. I was very happy to see those pieces being installed in relation. I think there is a nice conversation happening. I encourage everyone that hasn't been to the museum to go and check both of them. There's also one particular angle where you can see both exhibitions at the same time that I love.
Yeah.
These pieces, Unfolded Architecture, is another series that I've been working on over the past few years. It's a series that relates to particular spaces, the museums. They all come from the demolition, the debris that resulted from the demolition of the walls at particular institutions. This one that we're showing at MOLAA comes from a museum in Antwerp, in Belgium, the MOCA museum. And what I do is to collect these materials as they come from the demolition of the site. I don't change the colors. I don't change the shapes. Only in the edges to make the image fit the edges of the frame. But then with all those fragments, I start to make a new composition that relates to abstract art, to particular moments of history of painting, no, reticules. There's a bunch of different references that are embedded in those images. And yeah, the idea of showing the walls of the museum as the work of art, it's also something very important within these pieces, and also an idea of what needs to be kept, no? As you were telling, no, the idea of anthropology and history, or like present history, and what needs to be kept, what needs to be analyzed, is also one of the questions that remains. Many of the pieces sometimes have some sort of remnant of that particular exhibition. The color, sometimes you can even see a phrase of the photomural or the information of the pieces that were hanging on top of those walls. Those elements become important within the composition that is kept through the pieces.
Thank you, Pablo. To finalize this analysis and open the Q&A session with our audience, I would like to know what is your next project, because I know after the pandemic, you start to traveling again around the world. Tell us about your present, but also your next project.
Yeah. I'm very happy to start traveling again. I'm used to going from side to side and working directly on the spaces. As you see, many of the pieces relate to a particular place, a particular site, no? And therefore being able to go to MOLAA after all these 2 years of being in the studio was great. I just returned from a residency in New York, in the woods. That was amazing to keep on working on these new landscapes.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to another residency in Maine very soon, and then during the pandemic there was this project that I was very excited about, happening with a foundation in Palestine that got canceled because of the pandemic, but now after many talks and working with the foundation, we managed to make the project even better, to make a project that will involve multiple visits, site, what's the word? Working with different institutions there to have a deeper involvement with the site. And then at the end of it, it's a project that we're planning for in a 4-year span, that at the end of the 4 years, we will have a final publication, exhibition, and other things. That's the close of the projects that I have.
Yes, so fantastic. Okay, are you ready for the Q&A session? And
Yes,
Jorge,
definitely.
the curatorial
following.
assistant can open the session now.
Hey folks, thanks so much for being with us so far today. If you have any questions, please feel free to send them in the chat or the Q&A feature. It's an open platform, so please be comfortable to ask whatever question you want, and I'll read it aloud to Pablo. But while we wait for a couple of questions, I had a few myself. What if any artists or writers have influenced your, what I feel like is a very conceptual approach and perspective on art and art making, Pablo?
There's many. Right now, some of the references that I go back to have to do a lot with anthropology and in some instances to philosophy. I've been reading a lot about from this author that I like a lot called Michael Taussig, that has an approach to anthropology that I think is very very forward thinking. That's one of the references that come to mind right now. Also, the notion or the relationship between architecture and art, architecture and sculpture nowadays is something that I go back to often. So Le Corbusier is someone that I think about, especially when he writes and describes architecture as this object that lays in a field, very much describing a sculpture in a larger scale, and in that sense, thinking about museums also as a cultural object on its own is one of the things that make resonance with my work and with those ideas.
Cool, thanks.
Was that?
No, that was good. And then sort of a fun question here. And again, if anyone has a question, please feel free to send it into the chat. Obviously, your extractive process is really, really interesting to a lot of us here. And I wanted to ask, if it weren't for issues of legality or size, what could be like your dream extraction? What would be one of those dream extractions for you?
Oh man, yeah. The questions about legality is also something that I go back to. Yeah. Usually, I chose places that for the extractions that have no that people don't notice or that they don't care about, no? And in that sense, my work as an artist, or it relates also to the idea of highlighting places or like selecting places and choosing and making them more visible. I have gotten in some trouble with the law because of some extractions that were not supposed to happen, but I think I've always, there's this particular extraction that I've always wanted to do, but that relates to a Barragan place that it's a bit problematic to extract, especially now that yeah, it's a site that it's very, very protected, no? Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I wanted to say something more about those, but yeah, I'm thinking of which other place I would like to extract, but the one that comes to mind is that one, the Barragan place.
Cool. We have a question here from Julie. How did your upbringing, childhood, and early experiences in your life encourage or influence you to be an artist? And how did those things also influence your artistic focus?
I always knew I wanted to do art, especially after I noticed that art could allow me to link with other areas of study. I've never felt like it was only about making an image, but as a catalyst to getting involved with many areas of study. I've always been very curious and I read everything I find, no, but something that was really important, I think, in my upbringing, and that relates to also to the modes of operation that I've chosen, is that both my parents are anthropologists, and my father used to be a director of a museum, Antropología in Xochicalco, and my mother, she has been involved with anthropological books, and so that I think that gives that informed a lot of what the interest I was focusing on in.
Cool. If there are no other questions, we can close the Q&A. Thank you so much for answering the questions, Pablo, and thank you if you submitted a question. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Gracias, Pablo, querido, un lujo. Thank you for your generosity, for sharing with all of us your ideas and your knowledge. It's amazing to talk with you, and also we can invite all of you to visit the show, right?
Yes, I was going to add, so Pablo Rasgado Time-Based will be
Yes,
on
please.
in the galleries.
Fantastic. Thank you, Pablo.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And thank you, Gabby. Thank you, Jorge. Thank you, Alison, for everything.
Okay, and thank you for watching, right? And we hope to see you soon in our next Zoom project with the Oaxacan artist Narciso Martinez, that now we are preparing an amazing show at MOLAA.
Excellent. All right, thank you, everyone. Have a good afternoon.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much.